Hello, I'm John Gregory. You're watching the Villa View, up the Villa.
Hello and welcome back to the Villa View. At the start of the transfer window, Matt picked out his two best and two worst Aston Villa January transfer window signings. So cheers for taking all the best ones, Matt. So today, it's my turn to do the same, so stay tuned. For the best January transfer window signing, I've gone with Alberto Solano, who signed in 2004 from Newcastle United for £1.5 million. Sometimes players coming in make other players raise their game, and that's exactly what happened with Alberto Solano under David O'Leary. Juan Pablo Angel was carrying Villa a little bit at the time, and we just started to hit a little bit of a run of form. So then to bring someone in like Solano, who played on the same wavelength as Angel, because he was in his palm in those days, was just brilliant, and those two linked up really well. As I say, he just raised the game of everyone else around him. The midfield suddenly started to click. We've suddenly created more chances because he was a very creative player. And the Newcastle fans, I remember them being devastated when Solano left because he was a real fans' favourite. He left Newcastle because he had a breakdown of his relationship with Bobby Robson, which is very surprising because Bobby Robson came across as one of the nicest guys in football, but he came to Villa and he was just a different class. He was a different level. We ended up finishing sixth, but we very nearly qualified for the Champions League, and Solano played a massive part in that. The next season he went on to be the Villa's Player of the Year and top scorer. Before the season after, he ended up leaving and ended up going back to Newcastle, which I remember being very disappointed about, but that did enable us to continue our love affair with James Milner as he joined on loan. Solano managed to play 10 games in the 2003-2004 season, but although he didn't score, he did get some assists, and as I say, he did raise the games of everyone around him. We'd had Lee Hendry playing right midfield previously, and as much as Lee Hendry was a very good player, right midfield was not his position. Gavin McCann got injured, which enabled Lee Hendry to move in and start a very productive central midfield partnership with Thomas Hitzlsperger. With Gareth Barry on the left, that was probably one of the best midfields I've seen Villa have. It was very, very productive. It had a bit of everything, and all those midfielders were capable of getting on the score sheet. Next up, I'm going to go for Ashley Young, who joined along with John Carew, who was Matt's pick in January 2007. Ashley Young joined for an initial $8 million, rising to $9.75 million, which would have taken it to an Aston Villa club record transfer at the time. I remember him initially being brought in by Martin O'Neill to being used as a striker, which was a bit bizarre to see Young up front and Agbonlahor on the wing at the time. So he got off to a bit of a shaky start. Ashley Young, he scored in his debut in a defeat at St James's Park against Newcastle, but he looked like he was suffering with a bit of a lack of confidence when he first joined, and he picked up a few niggly injuries and he was in and out of the team. But he did end the season very strongly when he was put on the right hand side of midfield and Agbonlahor was moved back up front. Obviously Martin O'Neill probably saw the error of his ways. Although initially he didn't have his best spell at Villa in that season, he went on to be one of the better players I've ever seen Aston Villa have. He got countless assists, countless goals, and when Villa were good, it was mainly because Ashley Young was having a good game. He really made Villa tick, and he was involved in some really memorable games, such as the Birmingham 5-1, where he scored a double. And obviously, he ended up going on to Manchester United, and we ended up making a pretty big profit on him as well. So all in all, he goes down as an excellent piece of business by Martin O'Neill. I remember his diving used to wind people up, and that used to annoy me, to be honest. But at Villa, we definitely saw Ashley Young at his best, and with him and Carew joining at the same time, that was just a great piece of January business from Martin O'Neill. For the worst, I'm taking a trip back to January 2005, where Villa paid £1.5 million for the man who was so good they named him twice, Eric Djemba. I think he probably only played twice. He actually played 11 times for Villa, which is still pretty rank, if you ask me. I remember his first game in January 2005 at home to Arsenal at Villa Park, where we promptly got absolutely smashed. I think we were 3-0 down at half time, and it looked like there was holes all over the midfield. He didn't really find his way back into the starting lineup too many times after that. This smacked a bit of a PR signing by Villa, if you ask me, because we'd suddenly fallen away after having a good season before, and we were on for a boring mid-table finish under David O'Leary. And it seems like, I reckon, our old friend Alex Ferguson probably did us over again and said, I've got this guy at Man U, the next Roy Keane, who you can have for £1.5 million if you want. And I think Doug Ellis's eyes lit up so that we could just say that we'd bought a central midfielder from Manchester United and get a bit of positive PR, but there was no positives to come out of this signing because he was absolutely awful. And he went on to do really nothing in his career after that, and we did come up against him a few years later in the UEFA Cup preliminaries, I think, for Odense, and he still wasn't a very good footballer. God knows how he ever got a move to Manchester United. For all the good signings Alex Ferguson made there, he did have some stinkers in his time as well, with the likes of Jemba and Bebe and Kleberson. But yeah, if you can't get past Gavin McCann, who was good for Villa, but he's not the greatest footballer in the world, then there's serious problems for you, really. So yeah, Eric Jemba goes down as one of the worst signings I've ever seen Aston Villa make, and certainly one of the worst January signings in our history. For my second worst pick, I'm going to go against the grain a little bit. I'm not actually going to pick a player, but I'm just going to discuss last January transfer window, January 2016, where I spent more on my lunch at Tesco's than Villa spent in the whole entire transfer window of January. I actually felt really sorry for Remy Gard because it was just a thankless task taking over Villa at that time, and he was probably looking forward to getting to January and bombing out some of the disgraces and bringing in some of his own players. But the poor man wasn't allowed to do anything. He wasn't allowed to spend a penny, and subsequently we ended up not really bombing anyone else out either because we were pretty thin on the ground as it is. We certainly lacked quality, so it was just an old January window of absolute nothingness. Remy Gard actually wanted to sign the likes of Doumbia and Matteo Debuchy from Arsenal, but he wasn't allowed to particularly do that. And then even when we did agree that we should sign a goalkeeper in Kalinic, the Croatian goalkeeper, the work permit got refused. So all in all, that January window was just an absolute disaster. And although we'd have probably gone down anyway, it would have been nice for the board to have shown a little bit of fight and ambition and actually tried to get some players in and back the manager. And from then on, the writing was on the wall for Remy Gard because he was stuck with a load of players with a bad attitude that he didn't want, and he couldn't try and raise the standards at all by getting in some of his own guys. So yeah, that January transfer window probably goes down as the worst. It goes down as the worst transfer window of any team in history, in my eyes, let alone picking it in the top 2 worst January signings in this video. So that's all today from the Villa View. Let me know what you thought of this video. Did you agree that the signings I mentioned were good or bad, or have I missed out some absolute blatant bad or good signings from January transfer windows of the past? Please subscribe to us. Subscribers have been growing really well at the moment, and we're getting some great views on our videos as well. We've got some great stuff upcoming with obviously the John Gregory series, which is imminent. Also some Brentford stuff coming up in the week. And don't forget, we've also got a great competition that I'm pretty envious of because I'd quite like that prize for myself, but we're going to give it away, which is disappointing from my point of view. Give the video a like, comment below, and as always, up the Villa. If you enjoyed that video, why not watch another? Click the video choices on screen now to go and watch them in full. Be sure to subscribe to the channel by clicking our logo there on the left. Easy peasy.